So we're coming up on the release of Deadpool and Wolverine, the third film in the Deadpool series. So in light of that, why not rewind the clock back to the first one? Deadpool from 2016, directed by Tim Miller, starring the one and only Ryan Reynolds, amongst other people. It's basically the origin story of Wade Wilson becoming the famous merc with the mouth known as Deadpool, when he's diagnosed with cancer and going through certain treatments in order to cure the cancer, leading to some not so great results. And what ensues is him going down his revenge path. There's really not a whole lot of big spoilers in here, but if you somehow have never seen Deadpool, I do have to put in the spoiler warning because there's, I forgot just how crazy this movie is. I haven't watched it since its release 8 years ago, and I did a review of it back in the day, but like with all these videos that I do, I watch it to make sure that it's fresh in my memory, and to see if any of the stuff here will play into the third film, which may or may not happen depending on how they do the multiversal stuff. As for my history with Deadpool, I'm not exactly an expert. All I know is what I see in the movies or in the games. My introduction to Deadpool was the Spider-Man Shattered Dimensions video game where the Ultimate Spider-Man has to encounter him to obtain this artifact. In fact, in the one level where he goes onto the oil rig, we hear him say this.
And here he is, the terrifying, the deadly, the amazing Spider-Man!
Just what I always wanted. A tasteful introduction.
One of the best references to the 2002 Spider-Man film that I've ever heard. Probably the best one in my experience. To my knowledge, he's an anti-hero. I mean, they call him the merc with the mouth for a reason. He's not exactly someone who wants to fight for truth and justice and all that other stuff. He's a very dark and disturbed character at his core, yet he also deflects with humor, kind of like Robert Downey Jr.'s Iron Man or Tony Stark. Although the style of humor that he uses is not very quick-witted like Tony Stark's humor. Just a personal preference, I prefer Tony Stark's style of humor. It's just a thing with me personally, but I certainly understand the appeal that Deadpool has. We'll get into this as we go on in the video, but Deadpool has gotten a few good chuckles or laughs out of me. I would definitely not put him on my top 10 favorite list of fictional characters or anything, but he definitely has his appeal, so I will give credit where it's due. The opening credits sequence of the movie with Just Call Me Angel of the Morning and seeing all these slow-mo effects on the guys that he's killing, with the credits saying directed by some, well, asshat, as the credits says, kind of lets you know what you're in for, and a very self-aware type of tone that this movie embraces. It does not take itself too seriously. Deadpool doesn't take himself too seriously, as I've been able to gather from watching these two movies. He is definitely not someone who is all brave and noble, and I think if it were portrayed as otherwise, it definitely would have been, not well received at all. And we're told just about everything that we need to know about Wade Wilson when he sticks up the pizza delivery guy in order to scare him off as one girl who feels harassed by him. It's established in the film that he was part of a special forces unit who got a dishonorable discharge, and he's living a very crummy life, not really anything to get excited about, but then he meets this woman Vanessa in the bar that he's attending, and as you'd expect, a romantic/sexual relationship ensues. Things seem to be going really well until he receives his cancer diagnosis, and then he sneaks out in the middle of the night in order to get experimented on when he's approached by a guy who can offer him a chance of being cured, only to find out the hard way he's not exactly going to go home, and he's going to be forced to go on these special forces missions for this guy named Francis, or Ajax as he's called. Did I mention that he gets tied down by Gina Carano? Nevertheless, though, she, I think, plays her part just fine. She's really just there to be an evil henchman and not much else, or henchwoman. She's credited in the movie as Angel Dust, but I'm surprised they didn't call her in the credits Less Angry Rosie O'Donnell. As I said earlier, it had been about 8 years since I saw this, so I knew that he had to go through something really horrific to get the scars or the messed up skin that he has, which is why he wears the costume. But as I was watching it, I thought, okay, wait a minute, what happens here? And then when he gets put into the tube and they suffocate him with all the air being sucked out, I thought, oh, that's how it happened. And it certainly did not hold back with its graphic content. I mean, the R rating should really be the telltale sign for anybody who's new to this. Not just profanity, but the blood and gore and the physical stuff that they show Deadpool experiencing. Not for kids. In fact, the theater that I saw this in back in the day with my mom, there was a group of parents with their young children, or one child, and I thought, what? No, don't show this to your kid. And just a quick story for you. At the time when this movie was released, I was working at this grocery store, and a beer section in the store opened up, so I had to help behind the counter. This one customer comes up to me with a beer can that had Deadpool on it, and I pointed out, oh yeah, hey, that's cool, Deadpool, did you see it? Yeah, I saw it too. And he said that how his 8-year-old kid wanted to go see it, but he had to stop him and say, no. that's too much for you. Good parenting on that guy's part. At its core, the plot is very straightforward and standard, but what really separates it from the others in its genre is not just the humor and the tone and the violence, it's how it pokes fun at it. From the opening scene to the narration by Deadpool, or actually sometimes the breaking of the fourth wall, and breaking of the fourth wall inside of the breaking of the fourth wall, its self-awareness separates itself from its other counterparts. In a way, it actually does make it kind of refreshing. And I'm not using this to slag off against the MCU like certain other YouTubers on here will, and they certainly didn't hesitate to do the same thing 8 years ago when this released. But it is very effective of getting the point across and letting you know that this is a very different type of comic book character that people had become used to by then. And certain pop culture references that are made, there's obviously a Star Wars reference that I will always love to hear in any form of entertainment. He even mentions the Batman and Robin trope when he talks about the blind woman who he's friends with. But we also have the appearances of Colossus and Negasonic Teenage Warhead. And these two really liven up the movie so much more whenever they're on screen with Wade. And Negasonic is really there to just kind of be the quiet teenager who doesn't really want to be there, but she has to go along because her teacher, Colossus, said so. And I guess Colossus is a teacher at Xavier's school.
It's funny that I only ever see two of you. It's almost like the studio couldn't afford another X-Men.
References like that, other movies in the genre can't really get away with, but Deadpool, and I guess even to a certain degree, Eternals are the exceptions. I guess with the multiverse being a thing in the Marvel Universe and with DC trying to catch up to it, it was more than likely an inevitability. There's bound to be a crossover between Marvel and DC at some point down the line. We just gotta get through the Secret War stuff first. As far as my opinion on Ryan Reynolds, I don't know if I talked about it on here, maybe I did at least once or twice. I'm not exactly a fan of him, nor am I a hater. I think he definitely is really funny, and if you're someone who likes his style of humor, this is the movie that you're gonna really adore. His personality is practically synonymous with Wade Wilson by now, and I think it's a well-known fact that he is a fan of the character of Deadpool and the source material. You can clearly see his passion and care for the source material on display. He doesn't really feel like he's just doing it for the sake of begging the audience to love him. Given that it's Deadpool, who cares? I think it's a perfect fit. I've seen Ryan Reynolds in other movies, and he's played somewhat of a similar character in the ones that I've seen, but he definitely has his appeal, and I totally understand why people like him. If I had the opportunity to get a photo op with him at a Comic-Con at some point in the future, I wouldn't hesitate to do so. His style of humor, it's almost like he's constantly saying something funny whenever he opens his mouth. As I said earlier, Deadpool has gotten a few chuckles or really good laughs out of me, and it was the same thing rewatching this movie last night. Almost every line that I felt like he was saying, it was a one-liner. And I thought, okay, dude, that's too much. I get it. But then he would throw something really clever in there and I would go, oh, yeah, that's a good one. I get that it's the point of the character, but it's just a personal taste issue with me. Not saying it's bad, just a personal preference. And I do like the inclusion of Colossus, even though it's pretty clear that Deadpool will not take any of his advice to heart. He's kind of there to bring Wade back to reality, or at least attempt to bring him back to reality. I don't know if this is the same actor from the original X-Men trilogy, but his role in this movie does get the job done. And his speech that he gives to Wade about being a hero and how you only have 4 moments in your life to really make a difference as a hero, or whatever he says exactly. Rewatching it last night, and in fact, even watching it on opening day, as soon as he started talking about that stuff, I thought, come on, he's gonna shoot him. And then when he does, Colossus just starts to puke in disgust. I mean, it's Wade Wilson. What did you think was gonna happen? I don't know what's funnier, Wade shooting him or Colossus just puking his guts out over that. Probably both. Time to meet the professor. McAvoy or Stewart? Oh, these timelines are so confusing. As for Tim Miller behind the camera, he directs the action very viscerally. There's even a really good sense of grounded reality to the entire thing. I do personally get a sense of a structure from him and the screenwriters. There's also an element of them allowing the actors to play around in the sandbox and have some fun, particularly when he talks to TJ Miller's character Weasel in the bar about how his face looks. It is kind of humorous, but that was funnier in the trailer than the final cut.
You look like an avocado had sex with an older avocado.
Thank you.
I guarantee you that scene originally just went on and on and on with TJ Miller talking about how you look like this, you look like that, or this or that. If it hasn't happened already, I am curious to see it. If any of you can confirm that it actually is real, please let me know down below. Oh, and I really like how his healing factor is used for humorous effect when he tries to punch Colossus, and it's obviously not in his favor. Basically, I guess he's like Wolverine where he can heal really fast, or somewhat fast in his case. I think it's something to do with them going through the same type of program, Weapon X or something. There is something like that, to my knowledge, with X-Men Origins Wolverine, but yeah, it's another discussion. Although I may or may not talk about that one. We'll see. And one last thing I wanted to talk about. A lot of people praised this movie at the time for not being so connected to other movies, like the MCU or the DCEU would. Well, yeah, I would certainly agree that it is kind of refreshing to see that. I don't really think that's the sole reason why the movie works. It's all the other elements melding together to make this one special product that people will resonate with. At the time of this movie's release, we had Batman v Superman and we had Captain America Civil War. I think that movie was the best comic book film of 2016, with this one not too far behind it. And while yeah, it was kind of refreshing to not have Sam Jackson or some other MCU character show up and make some big connection to what was happening elsewhere. Maybe I'm just too spoiled by the MCU by now, but I did kind of miss that. Although we do get something like that in the post-credit scene, where it's clearly a spoof of Ferris Bueller's Day Off, and Deadpool is announcing Cable's appearance in the sequel.
But I can tell you one thing, and it's a bit of a secret. For the sequel, we're gonna have Cable.
Kind of like the movie Hot Fuzz, where it pokes fun at a certain trope that we've seen in other movies like this, yet when it plays on it, it's able to get away with it. There's a lot more stuff that I'm not even mentioning, like the taxi driver, and I just looked it up. The final battle takes place on an abandoned helicarrier, like we saw in Avengers, or something similar to it, I guess. And the use of certain songs in here really adds to the tone of Deadpool's lack of self-seriousness, I guess. Or someone who deflects with humor and just wants to have fun. Certainly fits his style, I'll say that. And this film's R rating definitely paved the way for a lot more movies like this. Even though prior to this we had 300 and Watchmen, this really kind of opened the door for movies like Logan and the Joker movie, along with its sequel coming out later this year. And Disney has come out and publicly said that they might consider a Marvel rated R brand, as long as they can let the audience know, hey, this is going to be rated R, don't bring your kids. On that note, I do respect the studio for putting that disclaimer out there. Oh yeah, I almost forgot one last thing. I guess Deadpool says something about finding someone attractive when he talks about a guy or whatever. I guarantee you, if that were to come out today, people on a certain political spectrum would have blown their stack. But if I'm not mistaken, in the comics, I guess Deadpool is pansexual? Or is that a recent thing? I don't know. But I personally am not bothered by it in the least bit. So the first Deadpool is certainly something that a lot of fans, in fact, I would say practically all fans of the source material, will absolutely adore. It's got everything that they need in a Deadpool movie, and Ryan Reynolds doing what he does best. It's not exactly my style. I kind of prefer the pure-hearted good guys, like this guy right here, but I got no problems with this movie existing. If you're fans of Ryan Reynolds and Deadpool, this is the movie for you. And now that I think about it, I never talked about the sequel, Deadpool 2, on here. I don't know why I never got around to it, but stay tuned for that. So those are my thoughts on Deadpool. Thank you guys so much for watching. Comment below and tell me what your thoughts are on this movie if you've seen it. And as always, see you in the next one.